I'm Tomas Guevara, and this is your channel, Rewriting the Reality. If you want to lead a more pleasant life and create your reality efficiently, subscribe to this channel and like it. In this way we will be notifying you of the new videos. This 12th episode is titled, Belief Systems. In our physical reality there are numerous belief systems. Each of them is made up of several elements. Within these elements are religion, sexuality, culture, science, and duplicity that we analyzed in the last episode. The strongest beliefs that I remember are, women must remain virgins until they marry, sex outside of marriage is sin. Today, all these beliefs seem crazy to us. This dimension is the most complex we inhabit, in terms of beliefs, and one of the last global events we are participating now is our religious age. The strongest belief is the belief of good and evil, which is a belief of duplicity, as we saw in the last video. Today, there are two prominent religions, with God and Allah as their representatives. However, the leaders of these two religions, far from accepting and living with the beliefs we have in common, have chosen to focus on differences. Let's look at some of these differences. Women should wear their faces covered and use long dresses. In the other religion, women can dress however they want, but dress is criticized if that dress is too daring. In both religions, there is machismo, more prominent in the second. Homosexuality is criticized in both, but in the second, the penalty is death. However, there are also homosexual people in that religion. In both religions, wealth is in few hands, but wealth is in the hands of the male sex in the second religion. Wealth in both religions could end poverty, but in each poverty exists. In the second religion, subjugating women is common. One wonders, why have women decided to be born in that part of the world? The answer is for experience. All women have focuses or lives, in each of these religions and others that I have not mentioned. As in essence, we are born physically in all regions of the world that we want to experience all these beliefs. There are no rules about it, only probabilities to continue or change the experience. The same is true for men, women, gays, and lesbians. In a book I read more than 20 years ago, Barbara Walter told us that in 1940 there were 14 million Jews, 1.2 billion Muslims, and 2.1 billion Christians. Christians have accused the Jews of murdering Jesus, the Messiah. The Jews have never accepted that Jesus is, or was, the Messiah. For their part, Muslims deny that he is a son of God, and claim that the Jews crucified him. Considering all this, we know that it has been more than 2,000 years since he was crucified, when he was 33 years old. The Jews accepted their guilt and understood that they would never receive the promised land, and 6 million of them chose to die under Hitler's power. This feeling of guilt was so great that collectively they decided they deserved punishment. I say they decided, because we created our reality, using the mechanism of perception, as I explained in episodes 5 and 6. In this way, they chose to participate in the Holocaust, and abandon this reality, because we must always have a reason to die, and at the same time, draw attention to a current situation, in this case, the racism imposed by Hitler and his followers. This racism still exists, and it won't go away until we understand that everything we think and do is based on our beliefs. I hope it will end in the next 50 years. That is the purpose of this shift that we are witnessing, a shift in consciousness, and we created it to accept the differences. Diseases do not respect social status or race, which shows us that no one is more than anyone else, and Kobe proved it. It's also a very creative way to get our attention. Therefore, our subjective self knows this, and is the architect of this creation. However, since we do not accept our responsibility in the creation of our reality, we look for other culprits. Now let's look at the universal concept of common sense and realize that it's just a belief. Common sense is only the sum of our prejudices. Those who claim to use common sense know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Now let's talk about values. One of the best judges in the United States of America, Learned Hand, 1872 to 1961, used to say with great certainty, "What are values, do you know?" I don't know. In fact, what we believe to be values are very intimately linked to the beliefs of each society, and therefore are not truths, but are realities in each of those cultures. Now let's look at some beliefs that are still held. We believe that science, which we can consider a pseudo-religion, is the answer to all our diseases. But the placebo shows us that this is not true. The interesting thing about placebo is that the same science uses it, according to them, to test the effectiveness of drugs. When pharmaceutical companies decide to test a drug, they choose a group of people. This group is divided into two. One group is given the original drug, the other group is given the placebo, that is, a drug that has no medical value. The interesting thing is that in the group that receives the placebo, some people heal or get positive results. Faced with this phenomenon, people say that they were cured by the power of the mind, others say by faith in medicine. Doesn't this remind you of what Jesus said to the woman who touched his robe? He said to her, "I did not heal you, your faith healed you." Or what he said about the mustard seed? If you had faith in the size of a mustard seed, you would tell the mountain to move, and it would move. That means that everything we truly believe in will come true. And this is done by the subjective self, instructing the objective self to use the mechanism of perception. Here, I must mention another point that science recognizes, but does not yet understand. Science recognizes that the observer affects the experiment. What they do not recognize is that it is the mechanism of the observer's perception that affects the experiment. We are always creating images that we insert into our physical focus, that is, into our reality, that reflect non-physical elements of our essence. Therefore, within our creation of sexual intimacy, we are creating images physically, which reflect a knowledge of the lack of separation within essence and consciousness. First, there is no place called heaven. There is simply all consciousness, and all consciousness has no need for orgasmic states, precisely because we have no gender as essence. Our state of being, and our joy within consciousness, does not compare to the physical state in this reality, and can be called rapturous. Therefore, comparing our state of orgasmic ecstasy, which is the epitome of the intensification of the senses, and joy within our physical focus, with reality that is not physical, is illusory. Obviously, a long time ago, through religious factions and other different goals, we have created a stigma around sex. This also reinforces our movement of separation from essence. In our movement, throughout our history, we have separated attention from our essence, and we have done so for the purity of our experience within this dimension. We also divorced ourselves from the elements of essence. Therefore, even within our images, we create belief systems that separate us from ourselves, as religions separate us, rather than unite us. That is, we have created belief systems to place taboos on sexual activity. We also create this as another barrier in our memory about our essence, because there is no gender within the essence. Therefore, to reinforce the purity of experience, within this physical focus of emotion, orientation, and sexual experiences, we separate ourselves so that we can more fully experience each manifestation of sexual orientation. Within the essence, there is no gender, no taboos. Within the essence, there is no good or evil. Within our belief systems that we have created in this dimension, we separate for purity of experience. Therefore, we separate into gender creations. Within our manifestations, by agreeing to participate within this dimension for sexual experience, we choose to create 3 manifestations for those experiences, one being masculine, one being feminine, and the other being what we mistakenly call homosexual. Within these experiences, we have created many belief systems, but these belief systems serve to separate us from the memory of the essence, thus allowing us the purity of the experience. In addition, we have belief systems that serve as motivation. If we are told that something is taboo, we create an automatic fascination within us. Therefore, we are motivated to explore this taboo. We move beyond our limits and limitations of duplicity and give ourselves permission to explore these areas that are taboo. Even if the motivation is private and we think in secret, we are still motivated to explore those taboos. When we are told, "You cannot do this," we will automatically naturally respond, "I will," because within the essence we have the knowledge that there is no element that can be denied to us. We also have the knowledge that there is no right or wrong. This provides us, despite our belief systems, with a very strong motivation to move into areas that are denied to us, because of our belief systems. This is not to say that our belief systems have not limited us in many areas, and within our sexual orientation, because we are also afraid of the damnation of our immortal soul, afraid of entering areas that cross the line of taboo, and that this may not be acceptable. But we are entering the information age, and the knowledge that there are no limits to us, and no area that is unacceptable to our experience. We have also been told that pleasure is good. It provides a facility within our value fulfillment. We may be achieving our value fulfillment without pleasure, but by moving in the direction of pleasure, we achieve our value fulfillment with fewer feelings of guilt. Therefore, we can all participate in and indulge with pleasure, and achieve our value fulfillment without feeling guilty. The value fulfillment will be analyzed in the next episode. Some may ask, what about sexual diseases resulting from, and people who contract other people's illnesses by being sexually promiscuous, so to speak? Sexual diseases are generated by belief systems. As is any disease. We may also be creating problems within the areas of sexuality, such as impotence, which is also born of religious belief systems, which suggest to us that sexual activity is not acceptable, so we create discomfort to reinforce these belief systems. Obviously, this becomes a vicious circle like AIDS. A person will say, "I'm not going to get AIDS," and he'll get it. At certain times, certain diseases, such as AIDS, are not simply influenced by belief systems. These are epidemics that we create as a mass statement. Although individually, everyone creates this disease within himself, for his own reasons, and is influenced by his own individual belief systems, in mass there is another reason for the creation of this disease. Every focus, or life, is influencing all our focuses. As I said, sometimes certain focuses can influence other focuses more. Now, I can also express that another focus may not be more influential, but you can choose to take energy from another focus, to reinforce your current focus or life, meaning your actual life. Some choose to believe that they are walking the path of righteousness, so to speak. Therefore, they will not think of themselves as promiscuous, but another focus of theirs will be promiscuous. The mere existence within this physical focus places us in the experience of being a sexual being, regardless of our actions. Our thought processes are influenced by our sexuality. Our physical feelings reflect this, regardless of our actions. If an individual experiences what they call impotence, a doctor would say it's a problem with their psychological or chemical imbalance. But it is also an action influenced by our belief systems. In the lack of acceptance of himself, an individual can imagine this action of impotence, and believe that he is not worth expressing this sexual action and imagine a lack of what we call performance, since they have very strong problems and belief systems in the area of lack of acceptance of the self and duplicity. And you can imagine helplessness, and by imagining this situation, you create helplessness. Remember, imagination is real, you make it real because you concentrate on it. Sometimes, for example, body awareness is involved. The mind can say, I want a woman, but the body can say, no, it's a man that I want. Therefore, they fear helplessness, and that reflects the conflict between what the conscious mind wants and what the consciousness of the body wants. This is not a rule. For the most part, people who experience this situation send an instruction, so that the consciousness of the body does not perform in the most intimate way, since the individual has a great lack of acceptance of himself and may not be intimate with himself. The same goes for the ability to achieve orgasms for women. Lack of acceptance of oneself, we do not allow ourselves to share with another individual, that as I have expressed, this is the action that reflects the existing interconnection with our essence. In these cases, we do not allow ourselves to participate in this action and share physically with another individual, and reduce our control of our separation, because we do not accept ourselves. Therefore, this creates a situation of fear. If you don't accept yourself, you will be relegated. You will limit yourself because you will not accept that another person accepts you either. We have very deep belief systems in these areas. We protect ourselves very carefully. We cling to our individual energies very carefully, and very seriously, because we have very strong belief systems of being hurt. We also have very strong belief systems in what we think of love. We do not give love and do not receive love easily, because this is an element that must be guarded, and if used improperly it can be extremely hurtful. It is better not to get involved in this area than to involve possible harm. Again, we don't give love. We don't receive love. We do not compromise love. We just experience it. Love is not an entity. It's not something we can pass on to each other. It is a state of being, and in love there is no harm. It is simply our belief systems that create the illusion of harm, and by imagining the harm, our feelings, our emotions within this dimension, create this damage through the mechanism of perception. That's why there's the saying, take care of what you focus on, because it can come true. We feel this, but this is dictated by our belief systems. We have created many situations in the area of our sexuality, by limiting ourselves with respect to our belief systems. So, if as a child you were abused by a family member, and you perceive that this is a traumatic experience, it will be a reality. Within our dimension, we have belief systems of right and wrong. Therefore, they are reality. I am not saying that this is not reality. It is the reality within this dimension. However, it is a reality directly influenced by belief systems. Therefore, engaging in sexual activities with another person is not right or wrong outside of our reality. It is simply a choice of experience. It is belief systems that suggest good or evil. In other cultures, there are sexual activities with minors, and since they do not have belief systems that this is wrong, there is no affectation or psychological damage. We are simply affected by psychological aspects when you live within a society that expresses mass belief systems that this activity is unacceptable. We know that there have been, in this physical focus on Earth, children who have had sex with adults and have come out of the experience unscathed, because they do not believe that this is shameful and wrong. If you didn't grow up in such a society, as most of us didn't, if you suffer emotional or psychological scars from it, you must allow yourself to accept yourself, and realistically recognize that you create your reality in every moment. I'm not saying it's not difficult to accept situations where abuse has occurred. Precisely, because our beliefs dictate that something is unacceptable and many times also prohibited by law. There is no element of yourself that is worse or better than any other element of yourself. Your whole experience is what you are, and all of this is acceptable. It is simply belief systems that suggest that some of your experiences, some of you, are not acceptable. Let's analyze a probable question. Is it true to say that all men and women carry homosexual tendencies with them in this life? The answer is no. Each focus has created an option for that experience. If you are choosing to participate as a homosexual, this will be your choice for that experience within that focus or life. If you are choosing not to engage homosexually, and you are choosing to be experiencing merely as male or female, this will also be your experience. Homosexuality is incorrect terminology for this other orientation. This is why I made the video about orientation. In that video I explained that you choose to manifest yourself as a man, woman or other, but that you are not choosing to be homosexual. You are choosing not to singularly align yourself with female or male gender and sexuality. Individuals do not manifest in this physical dimension without sexual orientation. They choose to deny their sexual orientation through an influence of their belief systems, believing that the lack or denial of sexual activity or orientation is more spiritual, the denial of the flesh. And these are simply belief systems that we have created. Why create a sexual dimension and deny their experience? In other words, you can choose not feminine, not masculine, and choose other. You could be from one rank to another in orientation. And some individuals choose to manifest within this particular dimension with a focus or life and create genitalia of both genders. An individual can be born male and always feel like a woman, and then when they are 40 years old, they go through all these changes to become a woman. It is also a choice. Just as you can alter any element within your life at any time, you can also alter your sexual orientation and choose another one of the three. Another question, is other bisexual? Yes, sometimes. Sometimes it is not other, because an individual may be experiencing one sexual orientation or another, and simply chooses to engage in a more varied sexual activity. Just for the experience. Orientation is choice. It is an agreement that we have chosen for this particular dimension, and you can choose any of the three orientations. Therefore, if you choose to participate in this reality, you also choose to agree with the manifestation of three sexual orientations, thus allowing yourself the spectrum of experience of sexual orientation within this particular dimension. We also have belief systems regarding sexual activity as an energy release, but you're not releasing energy.
However, in our health belief systems, our sexual activity within this dimension is quite healthy, and the denial of this activity is quite limiting.
We have also created our sexual activity as pleasurable. Therefore, it has more than one attraction for us. This activity can also be quite enlightening for us in what we see as spirituality, because there are more elements involved with this activity than we allow ourselves to experience. In the last episode, I mentioned that men who dream of sexual activity with other men is an example of the belief of duplicity. But it is also a recognition that there is no separation within the universal consciousness, and that this action or activity is not wrong either. It's just a subjective memory of what our essence is. Within our dream state, we allow ourselves greater freedom in generating, subjectively, images, and at the same time, we relax our belief systems within our subjective consciousness. This is not to say that we do not have belief systems subjectively within this dimension, but that we allow ourselves to relax these belief systems. Therefore, we can engage in more activities within the dream state than we allow within the objective waking state. We are attracted to ourselves, or we are attracted to another individual for many reasons, not just sexually. Our physical form responds to nothing without the direction of our subjective consciousness. Therefore, there are many reasons why we may be physically attracted to another person, but these attractions are also influenced by belief systems. You can see two individuals presenting themselves in the same way. One you will be attracted to and the other you will not, because you have belief systems that you do not even recognize what is acceptable to you. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the following video, Value Fulfillment. Good night and have dreams of inspiration.